Hi, I'm Tom, and in this video I'll show you how I kitbash this Dark Mechanicus Chaos Knight Abominant. I'll also be showing you how you don't need to follow the build instructions religiously, you can use them as a guide. This is the first of 3 Chaos Knights that I'm kitbashing, and once I've finished they'll all be going on eBay, so please subscribe so you don't miss this. Give the video a thumbs up if you like it and let me know what you think of it in the comments. The Chaos Knight kit is such good value for money. It has all the bits you need to build all 3 versions of the Chaos Knights, and now it even includes the bits to build the latest Chaos Knight, the Ruinator. So you get even more bits for kitbashing. So at the start of any kitbash, I build the base components. In this case, I build the body and legs. I also sourced these amazing bits from Taro Model Maker. He does lots of compatible knight bits. I'll be using this shield and a different Chaos Knight, and it is massive. I also bought this Mechanicus style head, as these Chaos Knights are going to be themed on the Dark Mechanicum, and this head is perfect. I want to elongate it with a neck and make it look even creepier and weird. I also bought this Kytan kit a few years ago, and I plan to use bits from it on this Abominant, but when I opened the kit I noticed something was wrong. What is going on here? Where is the front bit? With the axe on and all the other bits. It was at this point that I realised that the really expensive Kytan Forgeworld kit that I bought a few years ago was missing a sprue. In fact, it had 2 of the same sprue. Epic fail. I bought the Kytan a few years ago when I had an idea to do this project. I was going to use the body as the base of a Cerastus Knight. Safe to say, I was a little bit miffed, but I'd just like to point out Games Workshop's customer service is really good. So I contacted Games Workshop, and within a few days I had a full refund into my online account, which I used to buy a Cerastus instead. Yeah, say what you want about Games Workshop, but their customer service is second to none. Games Workshop told me to keep the Sprews as the Kytan was not in stock. I didn't want the bits to go to waste, so I decided to use some of them in this project, namely a foot and an arm. The Flail attachment on the Abominant just looks a bit janky to me, so I plan to fix that later on. And here is what I mean about using instructions as a guide, not a rule. I wanted to give this knight a crouching hero pose, but also make it lower to the ground. That will make it look more ominous and creepy. So I removed these tabs on the hip joints so that I could repose the legs easily. Bloody hell. I then used pink tack to stick the legs in place temporarily while I worked out the pose. Bloody hell. I made sure the contact points were smooth so they glued together easily. I find when doing a big model like this, it's best to start at the base and work your way up to the top. That way you know the model is not wobbly and it will fit on the base. I used this cork sheet to make a perch for the Kytan foot and gouged out a crevice to ensure it has lots of support and contact points. I also ensured that the toes wrapped around the top of the cork to make it look like it was gripping the floor. When I was happy with the pose of the legs, I glued them in place. I'm also working out the pose of the body and which way it's going to face. For the Kytan foot, I decided to make it look like it was damaged and hanging on with cables and wires, and with some chaos blessing. I used a paperclip to pin it in place and also drilled holes to include guitar wire. This would also give the model some strength. I also used some old headphone wires to add to the Dark Mechanicus robotic look. I drilled 2 pilot holes, put the wire in, and then wrapped it around the leg. I then also wrapped it up in some chain. I then realised this pose would have been awesome for a Rampager or Desecrator, or a Cerastus Knight Lancer. With the head, I pinned it with a paperclip to give it a long neck. I then added wire and green stuff cables to cover the paperclip. This again adds to the Dark Mechanicus look. I was also playing with putting weapons on top of the head. Once I was happy with the neck, I stuck green stuff cables around the paperclip to hide it. I then added this flesh tube from a bloat drone kit. Once I was happy with the head, I drilled holes for the cables in the body. I then decided I wanted to give it some more weapons, so I used these spare Primaris Dreadnought bolters and added them to the top and the bottom of the head. Boopity boopity boop. I think this really added to the creepy Mechanicus look. What do you think? I then connected guitar wire from the neck to the lower bolters. How awesome is this? Then onto the flail. I think the flail on the original model looks so janky, so I decided to kitbash my own. I used the Kytan arm to elongate the flail and would have the tentacles dragging along the floor as this beast stomped into battle. The Kytan kit has this cool skull weapon on the left arm, and would be perfect for the top of the flail. To make it look more like Dark Mechanicus, I decided to run cables into the skull eye sockets and nose. How dark is that? A mechanical demon's eyes and nose is being used as a weapon. These would then lead into the 3 tentacles. I then wrap chain around the top of the tentacles to give it support, and then I'm going to cover that in gore. I then decided to use some of these tentacle bits from the Forge Fiend kit to cover the joints, and add more of a mechanical look. The loincloth would also not fit now that I'd reposed the legs, so I cut off the plastic chain,
Bloody hell.
drilled some holes, and then hung the cloth using chain. And here is the finished flail. It looks so much better than the original. I used this spare part from the Kytan to make the arm stick out further from the body. I then stuck it together with pink tack to have a look at it. How awesome is this thing? I then gave it a simple paint job. Boobity bobbity boop. There you go, I painted it with some Abtalung 502 oil paints, namely engine grease, some AK Interactive enamel paints, some streaking grime, some rust effects, blood for the blood guard, and then some, like glow effects and some pigment powders as well. I went heavy on the blood and on some bits. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. Now the tentacle things here, they're covered in blood and grease. They look awesome. Put some char on the top of the sort of chimney things. So let me know what you think in the comments. Please check out my other videos, and as I said, this is going on eBay when I've finished all 3 of them, so they'll all be for sale. And if you want to support me further, I have affiliate links in the description below, and please consider supporting me on Patreon. You get access to my Discord and behind the scenes, and I've recently gone full-time doing YouTube. Thanks for watching, bye!